Ceremonial magic is the ancient art of invoking and controlling spirits by a scientific application of certain formulas. A magician, enveloped in sanctified vestments and carrying a wand inscribed with hieroglyphic figures, could, by the power vested in certain words and symbols, control the invisible inhabitants of the elements and of the astral world. While the elaborate ceremonial magic of antiquity was not necessarily evil, there arose from its perversion several false schools of sorcery or black magic. Egypt, a great center of learning and the birthplace of many arts and sciences, furnished an ideal environment for transcendental experimentation. Here, the black magicians of Atlantis continued to exercise their superhuman powers until they had completely undermined and corrupted the morals of the primitive mysteries. By establishing a sacerdotal caste, they usurped the position formerly occupied by the initiates and seized the reins of spiritual government. Thus, black magic dictated the state religion and paralyzed the intellectual and spiritual activities of the individual by demanding his complete and unhesitating acquiescence in the dogma formulated by the priestcraft. The pharaoh became a puppet in the hands of the Scarlet Council, a committee of arch-sorcerers elevated to power by the priesthood. These sorcerers then began the systematic destruction of all keys to the ancient wisdom so that none might have access to the knowledge necessary to reach adeptship, without first becoming one of their order. They mutilated the rituals of the mysteries while professing to preserve them, so that even though the neophyte passed through the degrees, he could not secure the knowledge to which he was entitled. Idolatry was introduced by encouraging the worship of the images, which in the beginning the wise had erected solely as symbols for study and meditation. False interpretations were given to the emblems and figures of the mysteries, and elaborate theologies were created to confuse the minds of their devotees. The masses, deprived of their birthright of understanding and groveling in ignorance, eventually became the abject slaves of the spiritual impostors. Superstition universally prevailed, and the black magicians completely dominated national affairs, with the result that humanity still suffers from the sophistries of the priestcrafts of Atlantis and Egypt. Fully convinced that their scriptures sanctioned it, numerous medieval Kabbalists devoted their lives to the practice of ceremonial magic. The transcendentalism of the Kabbalists is founded upon the ancient and magical formula of King Solomon, who has long been considered by the Jews as the prince of ceremonial magicians. Among the Kabbalists of the Middle Ages were a great number of black magicians who strayed from the noble concepts of the Sefer Yetzirah and became enmeshed in demonism and witchcraft. They sought to substitute magic mirrors, consecrated daggers, and circles spread around posts of coffin nails for the living of that virtuous life which, without the assistance of complicated rituals or sub-mundane creatures, unfailingly brings man to the state of true individual completion. Those who sought to control elemental spirits through ceremonial magic did so largely with the hope of securing from the invisible worlds either rare knowledge or supernatural power. The little red demon of Napoleon Bonaparte and the infamous oracular heads of de Medici are examples of the disastrous results of permitting elemental beings to dictate the course of human procedure. While the learned and godlike demon of Socrates seems to have been an exception, this really proves that the intellectual and moral status of the magician has much to do with the type of elemental he is capable of invoking. But even the demon of Socrates deserted the philosopher when the sentence of death was passed. Transcendentalism and all forms of phenomenalistic magic are but blind alleys, outgrowths of Atlantean sorcery, and those who forsake the straight path of philosophy to wander therein almost invariably fall victim to their imprudence. Man, incapable of controlling his own appetites, is not equal to the task of governing the fiery and tempestuous elemental spirits. Many magicians have lost their lives as the result of opening a way whereby submundane creatures could become active participants in their affairs. When Eliphas Levi invoked the spirit of Apollonius of Tyana, what did he hope to accomplish? Is the gratification of curiosity a motive sufficient to warrant the devotion of an entire lifetime to a dangerous and unprofitable pursuit? If the living Apollonius refused to divulge his secrets to the profane, is there any probability that after death he would disclose them to the curious-minded? Levi himself did not dare to assert that the spectre that appeared to him was actually the great philosopher, for Levi realized only too well the proclivity of elementals to impersonate those who have passed on. The majority of modern mediumistic apparitions are but elemental creatures masquerading through bodies composed of thought substance, supplied by the very persons desiring to behold these wraiths of discarnate beings. Some understanding of the intricate theory and practice of ceremonial magic may be derived from a brief consideration of its underlying premises. First, the visible universe has an invisible counterpart, the higher planes of which are peopled by good and beautiful spirits. The lower planes, dark and foreboding, are the habitation of evil spirits and demons under the leadership of the fallen angel and his 10 princes. Second, by means of the secret processes of ceremonial magic, it is possible to contact these invisible creatures and gain their help in some human undertaking. Good spirits willingly lend their assistance to any worthy enterprise, but the evil spirits serve only those who live to pervert and destroy. Third, it is possible to make contracts with spirits whereby the magician becomes for a stipulated time the master of an elemental being. Fourth, true black magic is performed with the aid of a demoniacal spirit who serves the sorcerer for the length of his earthly life, with the understanding that after death the magician shall become the servant of his own demon. For this reason, a black magician will go to inconceivable ends to prolong his physical life, since there is nothing for him beyond the grave. The most dangerous form of black magic is the scientific perversion of occult power for the gratification of personal desire. Its less complex and more universal form is human selfishness, for selfishness is the fundamental cause of all worldly evil. A man will barter his eternal soul for temporal power, and down through the ages a mysterious process has been evolved which actually enables him to make this exchange. In its various branches, the black art includes nearly all forms of ceremonial magic, necromancy, witchcraft, sorcery, and vampirism. Under the same general heading are also included mesmerism and hypnotism, except when used solely for medical purposes, and even then there is an element of risk for all concerned. Though the demonism of the Middle Ages seems to have disappeared, there is abundant evidence that in many forms of modern thought, especially the so-called prosperity psychology, willpower-building metaphysics, and systems of high-pressure salesmanship, black magic has merely passed through a metamorphosis, and although its name be changed, its nature remains the same. The practice of magic, either white or black, depends upon the ability of the adept to control the universal life force, which Eliphas Levi calls the great magical agent, or the astral light. By the manipulation of this fluidic essence, the phenomena of transcendentalism are produced. The famous hermaphroditic goat of Mendes was a composite creature formulated to symbolize this astral light. It is identical to Baphomet, the mystic pantheon of those disciples of ceremonial magic, the Templars, who probably obtained it from the Arabians. A well-known magician of the Middle Ages was Dr. Johannes Faustus, more commonly known as Dr. Faust. By a study of magical writings, he was enabled to bind to his service an elemental who served him for many years in various capacities. Strange legends are told concerning the magical powers possessed by Dr. Faust. Upon one occasion, the philosopher, being apparently in a playful mood, threw his mantle over a number of eggs in a market woman's basket, causing them to hatch instantly. At another time, having fallen overboard from a small boat, he was picked up and returned to the craft with his clothes still dry. But, like nearly all other magicians, Dr. Faust came at length to disaster. He was found one morning with a knife in his back, and it was commonly believed that his familiar spirit had murdered him. Although Goethe's Dr. Faust is generally regarded as merely a fictional character, this old magician actually lived during the 16th century. Dr. Faust wrote a book describing his experiences with spirits. This section will be narrated soon on the channel, so make sure to subscribe. The pentagram is the figure of the microcosm, the magical formula of man. It is the one rising out of the four, the human soul rising from the bondage of the animal nature. It is the true light, the star of the morning. It marks the location of 5 mysterious centers of force, the awakening of which is the supreme secret of white magic. In symbolism, an inverted figure always signifies a perverted power. The average person does not even suspect the occult properties of emblematic pentacles. On this subject, the great Paracelsus has written, "No doubt many will scoff at the seals, their characters, and their uses, which are described in these books because it seems incredible to them that metals and characters which are dead should have any power and effect. Yet no one has ever proved that the metals and also the characters as we know them are dead, for the salts, sulfur, and quintessences of metals are the highest preservatives of human life and are far superior to all other simples. The black magician cannot use the symbols of white magic without bringing down upon himself the forces of white magic, which would be fatal to his schemes. He must therefore distort the hierograms so that they typify the occult fact that he himself is distorting the principles for which the symbols stand. Black magic is not a fundamental art. It is the misuse of an art. Therefore it has no symbols of its own. It merely takes the emblematic figures of white magic, and by inverting and reversing them, signifies that it is left-handed. A good instance of this practice is found in the pentagram, or 5-pointed star, made of 5 connected lines. This figure is the time-honored symbol of the magical arts, and signifies the 5 properties of the great magical agent, the 5 senses of man, the 5 elements of nature, and the 5 extremities of the human body. By means of the pentagram within his own soul, man not only may master and govern all creatures inferior to himself, but may demand consideration at the hands of those superior to himself. The pentagram is used extensively in black magic, but when so used its form always differs in one of 3 ways. The star may be broken at one point by not permitting the converging lines to touch. It may be inverted by having 1 point down and 2 up, or it may be distorted by having points of varying lengths. When used in black magic, the pentagram is called the sign of the cloven hoof, or the footprint of the devil. The star with 2 points upward is also called the goat of Mendes, because the inverted star is the same shape as a goat's head. When the upright star turns and the upper point falls to the bottom, it signifies the fall of the morning star. In conclusion, while ceremonial magic offers a fascinating exploration into the mysteries of the unseen world, it is fraught with significant dangers and ethical implications. Practitioners risk psychological harm, obsession, and moral corruption. Historical examples, such as those from ancient Egypt and medieval Europe, demonstrate how the misuse of these practices led to societal harm, spreading superstition and intellectual suppression. Even modern manipulative techniques in self-help and business echo the darker aspects of magic, emphasizing selfishness and exploitation. Understanding and practicing ceremonial magic is important for initiates in the Masonic and Rosicrucian rites because it serves as a profound tool for personal and spiritual development. These esoteric traditions view ceremonial magic as a means to connect with higher planes of consciousness and to unlock deeper levels of wisdom. By mastering the principles of ceremonial magic, initiates learn to harness the universal life force in a disciplined manner, fostering virtues such as self-control, ethical integrity, and the pursuit of truth. This disciplined approach helps initiates develop a balanced and enlightened perspective, essential for their roles within these mystical orders. The ethical considerations in the practice of ceremonial magic cannot be overstated. Practitioners must navigate these ancient arts with a high degree of responsibility, ensuring their actions are aligned with the greater good. The true path to wisdom and power lies not in the domination of elemental forces, but in harmony and ethical integrity. Thus, while ceremonial magic can provide profound knowledge, it demands a balanced approach, respecting both natural and spiritual laws to prevent harm. If you want to delve deeper into the world of ancient wisdom and esotericism, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more insightful videos. And if you want to support my mission to unearth and decipher the forgotten teachings of the ancient mysteries and the encrypted knowledge of Western esotericism, consider becoming a Patreon supporter. Until next time, continue to seek out the light. Hen to Pan.